A story about a man who finds out he is not his own son after his sister posts a photo with the caption "Without me." I booked a villa in advance. A large building with a terrace that overlooked the beach. The villa was bright, spacious, with several bedrooms, a pool, and a private exit to the sea. I wanted everything to be perfect. This was to be our family vacation, something that would bring us together, bring back warm memories, and give us the opportunity to get together again. I paid for everything myself: the flight, the transfer, the meals, even the small gifts that I put in each family member's room. I wanted to make it nice. And I thought I did. Mom and Dad arrived first. They were tired from the trip, but happy. Mom immediately went to the kitchen to check if everything was ready, and Dad settled on the terrace with a glass of juice. Then my brother and his wife arrived. They brought their children with them, 2 twins, boys, about 6 years old. The children immediately ran to the pool. It was fun. The atmosphere was just as I had imagined: sun, laughter, water, beach. I was glad that everyone had come, that everything had worked out. I stood by the pool and watched everyone laugh: Dad telling a story from the past, Mom wiping her hands on an apron and shouting at someone not to run around the kitchen with wet feet. My brother was taking pictures of the children. His wife was already leafing through the restaurant menu, even though I had said that the chef was cooking right in the villa. I felt satisfied. For the first time in a long time. I was waiting for another guest, my younger sister. She lived separately, but promised to come. We corresponded. I sent her tickets, she thanked me, wrote that she was waiting this week. I reserved a room with a sea view for her, left a box of jewelry on her pillow that I had found in a boutique, a silver bracelet with a small shell-shaped pendant. The day went by, and she didn't show up. I wrote to her. She didn't answer. Then I called. The phone was off. Everyone asked if she would be there. I said yes, it was just that something had delayed her. My parents weren't worried, they said she was always like that, in her own rhythm. My brother joked that she had overslept on the plane again. But I felt anxious. Something was wrong. The next morning, I went on social media and saw her photo. She was standing against a white bar background with a cocktail in her hand, in a short sundress, with a smile on her face. The caption was short: "Family weekend in Bali, without me." The photo prompted dozens of comments. People wrote, "Tough, this is so close, it's better not to have such a weekend." Someone asked where she was, and she replied that she had simply taken tickets to the other side of the island, where no one would touch her. I reread this caption over and over again. Without me. Although I included her in everything. She was invited. Everything was paid for. Her room was ready. I didn't show the photo to anyone. I went back to breakfast. Mom asked if there was any news. I said no. But the mood changed. I looked at the cheerful family and felt something tighten in my chest. Everyone was happy. And I was silent. I began to remember little things. How she rarely answered calls lately. How she refused to come to my parents' birthdays. How she only came to the ceremony at my wedding, and didn't stay for the banquet. I didn't pay attention then. But now everything is starting to come together. In the evening I looked at her page again. She posted a new photo. A beach, a cocktail, a palm tree. The caption: "Sometimes the best company is yourself." She didn't run away. She did it on purpose. She wanted me to see it. And for everyone to See it. She had to say something, but she did it silently, a photo and a few words. But more was said than in the whole year. I didn't know why. I didn't understand what had happened. But I understood that everything was not that simple. The next day, my mother asked if I wanted to go to the market. I agreed. We went together. She was silent in the car. But then, when we stopped at the fruit stand, she suddenly said that maybe I was pushing too hard. That not everyone likes it that way, with gifts, with control, with complete organization. I didn't answer. I didn't understand what she was talking about. But she just looked at me and said, "You wanted the best. But maybe your best just doesn't suit her." It was unexpected. I didn't know what to say. In the evening, I opened her page again. There was a new caption: "Freedom is when no one asks why you are happy alone." I sat in the shade of a palm tree and looked at the sea. The villa was full of people. But somewhere nearby she was. And she didn't want to be here. She didn't want to be with us. With me. On the fourth day, I woke up earlier than everyone else. The house was quiet, only something was humming somewhere in the kitchen, perhaps the refrigerator. I went out onto the terrace, where there were still bottles from the evening. The children were running around. Until nightfall, the adults were laughing, playing cards, someone was singing to the guitar. I managed to create a festive atmosphere, but I was superfluous in it. It wasn't the sun that warmed me, but the anger that I couldn't express. I didn't understand why she had done it that way. Silently, publicly, without a single word of explanation. I picked up the phone again. A new story appeared on her page: "Morning coffee, a view of the ocean from her hotel room window." She was right there. I checked the geotag. She did live 10 minutes away. In the same city. She could have come right now, but she decided not to. I wrote her a short message: "You're close. Why aren't you coming?" There was no response. I could see that she had read it, but she didn't react. Over breakfast, I said I would go out for an hour. My father raised his eyebrows, but didn't ask anything. My mother nodded. I got in the car and drove to the hotel's coordinates. Its facade was decorated with white curtains, and there were security guards at the entrance. I went to the reception and asked if I could deliver the note to the room. They said yes. I wrote a few words on a piece of paper: "I don't want a fight. I just want to know why." I asked them to deliver it to her room. And I drove away. It was hot in the villa during the day. The kids were playing in the water. My brother and his wife had gone on an excursion. Mom was sitting under an umbrella knitting something. I spread out a towel and lay down by the pool, but I kept checking my phone. Nothing. I started wondering if she would even get that note. Would she open it? Would she admit anything? I couldn't concentrate. It felt like I wasn't resting, but waiting for some kind of verdict. In the evening, when everyone gathered at the table, I remembered the bracelet. I brought it and put it on the chest of drawers by the door where the keys were. Someone asked what it was. I said it was for my sister, in case she changed her mind. Mom looked at me, didn't say anything, but her face changed a little. Dad pretended not to hear. It felt like everyone knew something, but was silent. And I was the only one who didn't understand what was happening. The next morning, I woke up to a message. It was her. A short text: "I couldn't come. And I can't. I called right away, she didn't pick up the phone. I wrote, "Explain. Please." She answered with just 2 words, "It's not for me." I didn't know what to do with it. Not for her, what? The villa? The family? Me? We'd been close all our lives. I'd protected her when she fell off her bike. I'd picked her up from school. She'd come to my room when she was afraid of thunder. And now she couldn't even explain her refusal. I couldn't stand it. I got in the car again. I drove to the hotel. This time the security guard recognized me and said she was gone. She'd left an hour ago. No explanation. No goodbye. Without a word. I was left standing in the parking lot, looking at the facade of a building that no longer meant anything. I didn't understand where she had gone. I tried to find her page. Nothing new appeared there. The phone wasn't answering. I returned to the villa. No one asked anything. Everyone was busy with their own business. I went out onto the beach and sat down in the sand. I watched the waves roll in and out. For some reason I remembered how she and I used to build sandcastles, how she once threw a shovel into the sea and cried because she thought it had stolen her. I promised her then that I would always give it back. That I would always be there for her. But now I couldn't even give back an explanation. In the evening, my mother sat down next to me. She was silent for a long time, then she said, "Sometimes we don't notice how we cling to an imaginary picture. And we don't see that the other person is no longer inside this picture." I asked what she meant. She shrugged. "You like order, control, structure. And she doesn't. Sometimes we don't love people, but our ideas about them." Then she got up and left. I was left alone. And I felt that something inside me had failed. Everything I had built crumbled like that sandcastle. The next morning I decided to clean out the basement. There were old bicycles, boxes of beach equipment, drinking water supplies, fishing rods, lanterns, sun loungers, and a lot of small equipment that no one was using. I wanted to clean at least this space so that I wouldn't sit idle. The same thoughts kept spinning in my head, and the only way to avoid them was to do something physical. I took all the boxes to the center of the room and started sorting through the contents. Many things were broken, others had lost their appearance. I put the trash separately, and the useful ones in other boxes. When my brother appeared, we worked in silence. He helped sort things, take out the heavy ones, and put everything on the shelves. Together, the work progressed faster. We cleared out 3 shelves and threw out half of the junk. After a few hours, the place looked completely different, orderly, clean. When we went up to the veranda, everyone was already sitting down to dinner. Someone was frying fish. The children were chasing each other, splashing water on each other. Everyone looked relaxed. I watched them from the window. The villa I had rented for a joint vacation was more like a play in which I no longer had a place. I was a spectator who happened to stay on stage after the play had ended. In the evening, I sat on the steps in front of the entrance and looked through old photos on my phone. Many of them showed her, the younger sister. Trips, walks, laughter together. I stopped at one photo taken a few years ago. We were sitting on the roof of my parents' old house. Evening, red sky, she had tea in her hands, and I had an old film camera. She said then that she wanted to go far away, somewhere where no one would know her. You could feel it in the photo, her gaze was directed somewhere beyond the horizon. The next morning, I decided to look at her profile on social networks. Nothing new. But when I was looking through old posts, I came across one photo taken before our vacation began. It showed her standing on the shore, with the sea behind her. And the caption, "Finally, by herself." The comments contained greetings, hearts, and short phrases that didn't explain anything, but hinted at some event. One of the users tagged her in another photo, where she was with a stranger, both smiling, with glasses in their hands. The caption under the photo did not contain anything suspicious, but the geolocation indicated a hotel located on the opposite shore of the island. It turned out that she had been living there for the past few days. She was right next door. But she did not come. She did not even look in my direction. It was all a conscious decision, planned and clear. I felt not just forgotten, but erased from her reality. All this time I tried to create an environment that would unite the family, but it turned out that she no longer wanted to be a part of it. She did not need our rules, rituals, trips, meetings, conversations about the past. I went out to the beach. Walked to the very edge of the water, where the rocks began. It was deserted. Only the waves licked the stones, leaving foam. I sat down on a cold, flat boulder, looked into the distance. My mind was empty. No decisions, no emotions. Just the feeling that something was gone forever. I remembered everything: my childhood, her laughter, our shared secrets. Walks after school, birthday presents. All of it lost its weight. Now these memories belonged only to me. They were no longer shared. When I returned to the villa, everyone was already having dinner. I went into the room, closed the windows, and lay down on the bed. I began to read the messages on my phone. A notification came, a new post from her. A photo of the same villa, but taken from afar. In the frame were the windows, the pool, part of the garden. The caption, "So close and so foreign." She was here. She came. But she didn't come in. She watched from afar. I saved this photo. Then I turned off my phone. I fell asleep with a feeling that all my efforts to hold on to something whole had been in vain. The next day I woke up earlier than everyone else. The house was quiet. I went out into the garden, where the night mist had not yet lifted. The air smelled of the sea and humidity. I walked between the palm trees, went down to the beach, and looked at the coastline. The traces of the night water were still fresh, the sand was damp, as if it had remembered every touch of the waves. I wasn't looking for anyone, I just walked. After breakfast, one of my relatives arrived, my cousin. I had forgotten that she had also been invited. She had brought bags of food, beach games, and towels with her. The others were glad to see her, but I looked at her as if she were a random guest. Everything in me began to recede, as if I wasn't there, but was watching everything from inside the glass. They laughed, planned dinner, assigned tasks. I stood aside, nodding occasionally, but no longer taking part. After lunch, I checked her profile again. There were no new photos. But a new comment appeared on the previous photo, the one of our villa from afar. Someone wrote, "You did the right thing." The answer: I will not be silent anymore. This short phrase stuck in my head. I didn't know what it was for, but the knowledge that she was nearby did not give me peace. I started checking the surveillance cameras. There were several on the villa's territory, at the entrance, by the pool, in the garden. I logged into the system, reviewed the recording from the last few days. There was nothing suspicious. Only footage of someone walking past the gate in the dark. A figure in long clothes, her face covered by a hood. She had a phone in her hands. She looked at the villa, stood for a few minutes, then left. There were no other traces left. I turned off the screen and sat on the sofa. It was obvious that she wanted to say something, but she didn't dare. Something was holding her back. Or someone. In the evening I went out into the yard. Everyone had gathered. Some were playing with the children, some were cooking on the grill, some were sitting in deck chairs with cocktails. The atmosphere was almost festive. Everyone had forgotten about her absence. No one mentioned her. No one asked. Only I carried a heavy burden of silence within me, a crack in which was dissolving. I sat on a bench under a tree and watched. It was as if I wasn't there. The next morning I decided to go to the hotel I had found in her geolocation. It was a small private establishment, with a terrace overlooking the beach. I got there and sat down in the cafe opposite. I ordered a coffee and waited. People came and went. I looked at everyone. After an hour of waiting, I saw her. She left the hotel, a suitcase in her hands. She looked to the right, to the left, then called a taxi. I didn't go over. I sat still. I watched the car slowly turn the corner. She left. Without me. Without a word. When I returned, no one asked anything. Everyone was doing their own thing. The day passed quickly, without any particulars. In the evening I went into her old room. The bed was made, there was a bookmark from a book on the bedside table. And in the drawer I found an envelope. There was no name on it, only one inscription: "Who wants to know, open it." I held it in my hands for a long time. Then I opened it. Inside was a sheet of paper with several paragraphs handwritten on it. It said that she had been silent for a long time. That she felt unnecessary, superfluous. That in this family everything was done the way I decided. That everyone seemed to be together, but only from the outside. And that she always saw everyone had enough attention except her. She seemed to be loved, but not heard. And the more she remained silent, the more she disappeared. There was another sentence: "This whole weekend is the latest proof that I have no place here." I sat with the letter in my hands. The thought was spinning in my head that I had really never asked what she wanted. I invited everyone, chose the houses, formed the program, wrote the menu, did everything that seemed right. But I didn't notice who was stepping aside. I never asked her directly. Maybe I was afraid of the answer. And now it was too late. In the morning I left the letter in the safe. I couldn't look at it anymore. After I read her letter, everything around me lost its meaning. The villa, the beach, the relatives who were still laughing by the pool and discussing plans for the next day seemed like the scenery of someone else's life. I could no longer keep up the game as if everything was fine. I distanced myself from everyone completely. I spent my days in the shade, my evenings alone, avoiding conversations. They didn't seem to even notice. Silence became my new state. And within that silence I began to look for answers. I remembered my childhood. She always sat on the sidelines. When we played on the beach, she drew in the sand with a stick. When we went on trips, she looked out the window. I thought then that she was just comfortable being alone. But maybe she just didn't know how to ask for attention. And we hadn't taught her that asking was okay. In a family where everyone lived according to a schedule, she would fall out of line. And I, as the eldest, didn't notice it in the first week of the trip. I didn't see anything extra in her room. But now, armed with a different perspective, I began to look for details. Notebooks, sketches she wrote. And for more than 1 year, her thoughts were everywhere. She wrote down sentences, excerpts, reflections. One thing was visible in every line: she lacked the space where she could be herself. Not part of someone. Not someone's younger sister. Just herself. I began to collect all these things. Not destroy them, keep them. I realized that this was all that was left of her. Memories, excerpts, and traces. Nothing more. She left not because she wanted to attract attention, but because her limit had already been crossed. And I missed that. One day I went out into the garden and heard my parents talking to someone on the phone. From their words, I understood that they were discussing the publication. Her photo with the caption became the subject of conversation among friends. Someone commented, someone asked. Her parents shrugged, saying that she was overdoing it again. I stood behind a tree and listened. I felt sick. They didn't understand. And they didn't want to. In the evening, I sat in the kitchen alone. I looked through all the photos I had taken over the years of traveling. She was always to the side, in the background, at the edge of the frame. And always with a detached look. I began to cross these frames out one by one. Not from memory, from phones, archives, clouds. Because if I couldn't give her space, then now, at least, I wouldn't keep the lie that we were together. The next day I decided to return to the hotel where I had last seen her. There, they told me that she had checked out without explanation. But she had left a letter for whoever comes. I took the envelope and sat on the bench. The letter was short. She wrote that she would never come back because she had tried to fit in for too long where she had not been seen. And that she did not hold grudges because she had learned to forgive. But she would never be able to forget. And also, don't look for me, answer yourself whether you have ever seen me at all. After that letter, I sat on the bench for almost an hour. Then I just left. I didn't go back to the villa right away. I walked along the shore. I walked further and further away until the sound of the water merged with my thoughts. I realized that it wasn't her fault. She wasn't running away. She was breaking free. And we just couldn't see that she didn't need much just to be recognized. When I got back to the villa, I told her that I wanted to leave the house for a day or two. My relatives shrugged. Some joked, others didn't answer. I packed my things, got out to the car. But this time I wasn't going to look for her. I was going to look for myself. Because only now did I realize how deeply I was part of a system that had learned to live without love. I left without a plan. I didn't know where I would stop, where I would arrive, what I was looking for. I just had to go. The road was calming. I saw the faces of people on the side of the road. I listened to the voices of random passers-by. But there was nothing left in me except one thing: emptiness. That emptiness was not scary. She was honest. For the first time in a long time, everything around seemed real. The next day I stopped at a small motel, left the car and walked to the old pier. I sat on the edge, looked into the water. I remembered an incident from my childhood. She was about 10 years old, and she was afraid to swim. We all laughed, incited her to jump, but she was silent. Then she quietly took off her hat and walked away. No one followed her. She sat in the shade all day, alone. I didn't even think to go over then. I just forgot. But, apparently, she remembered. The next morning I woke up early and decided to return to the villa. I didn't want to see the same faces again, I didn't want to hear the empty conversations again, but something made me close this story until the end. I pulled up when the sun was already rising. There was a letter by the entrance. It was placed so that it could be seen clearly. The envelope had my name on it. When I opened it, I saw her handwriting. The letter had one sentence: "Look in the mirror on the second floor, in my room." I went in, walked past everyone who was still sleeping or drinking coffee, and went upstairs. The mirror was hanging on a closet. I looked. There was a small chip in the corner of the frame. I ran my finger through it and it slid easily. An envelope was hidden behind it. Inside was a copy of her birth certificate. But not hers. Mine. I read my father's name again. The name was different. A stranger. Not the one I had known all my life. I sat down on the floor. I tried to breathe. But there was not enough air. Another letter followed the document. She wrote that she had accidentally found it a few years ago when she was going through old things. At first I didn't believe it, I thought it was a mistake. But then a DNA test. She didn't want to tell me because she knew I would break down. But after they crossed me out of the will, after they made me understand that I was not real, she decided that I had to know the truth. Not for revenge, but so that I wouldn't have to live a lie anymore. Chaos arose in my head. Memories rolled in like a wave. All those moments where I thought I was part of something big, real, family, now looked like a role in someone else's theater. I wasn't just crossed out of paper. I was crossed out from the very beginning. I went downstairs, silently went outside. The sun was beating down on my eyes, and it seemed to me that even the light had become different. I felt something inside me burn out. Quietly, calmly, finally I got into the car. Her old notebook was lying on the seat. I opened it at random. On the page is her phrase, "We were both superfluous in someone else's house. But now we can choose our own." It was her last gift. Not revenge. Not pain. A way out. I left. This time, for good.